Hi, thank you for joining me. I'm Shareen El Safy, sitting here next to the beautiful Pacific Ocean in Santa Barbara, California. And I'd like to welcome you to this taping session. I'm going to do an instructional video on drum solo technique. We're going to take some movements and combinations that are typical of the Egyptian dancers, primarily Egyptian, although there are a few other sources, Lebanese and so forth. And I'm going to liberally borrow from every great dancer I've ever seen who's done something that really caught my attention. I'll start with the most basic of movements and build up to the combinations of movements that we can use to create an exciting drum solo. The drum solo for me is like a real Egyptian connection with the earth. And we need to plant our feet firmly on the ground, on the downbeat, in sync with the drum, because it's like waking up the earth. You know, probably this was a fertility dance in ancient times. Perhaps the step, the movement in connection with the earth helped to remind the earth that it was time to bring the springtime and then the reaping of the crops. Perhaps, you know, it's one of those theories. So we're going to come down on the downbeat. We're going to try to articulate the various parts of the torso, the lower torso especially, that will help mimic the sound of the drum. So we've got various shapes and rhythms and forms that we can use to articulate, interpret, and express not only the music, but ourselves as women and as dancers. So the main thing for me has been to learn to breathe deeply and regularly throughout all the movements. Because we're using muscle, we need to nourish this body, and we need to bring that freshness into our experience of the dance. Sometimes when dancers are concentrating, we forget to breathe. And so we want to kind of learn how to do that even when we're focusing on something intensely. I like to think of bringing the breath up through the feet and into the torso and swelling it through the diaphragm and then bringing it up through the top of the head. Because for me, I can nourish the body and I can also allow myself to expand so the self actually becomes a little bit bigger than the container and brings that energy up through the body. So that connection with the earth and the flow that's created with the deep breathing will really help us enjoy ourselves with the dance. So those points are probably the main points, and I'll continue to talk about it throughout the video, I'm sure. And I hope you enjoy the material, and we'll get going. Thank you. I'd like to also show you a movement that I first saw on a video with Mona Saeed. It had Nili Fouad, Mona Saeed, and Hanan. And I had the good fortune to work with Hanan at El Lail in Cairo, and I asked her how she did this fabulous movement that she'd done on the video. And the video was actually had shown her with her back to the audience, and so it was very hard to decipher. As you can tell, I borrow, steal, and use whatever I can, whatever I'm exposed to that really grabs me. And in general, these dancers have been very generous with their time and their information, so I'm grateful to them. Hanan would do what I'm calling a circle shimmy. She described it as a shimmy on a flat plane, like a table. She said table. So it's a horizontal shimmy. Remember the idea of the posture. This is one of those movements where the posture really does come in handy. We have that tuck under, that pull in at the navel, the lift up all the way around, the head back, the knees are flexible, but fairly straight. Our weight is always over the big toe, supporting the knee. I'm going to use my bum to push forward and pull around abdominally to the back. Use my bum again to push forward to the very front of that hip, and then melt into the center of the body. That melt is going to look and feel differently than just a pull back. It's a melt into a very intimate place deep inside the body, and it's sort of like a private moment, okay? Don't be afraid of it. It is a vulnerable place, but therein resides a lot of power, and it's like that melting, that ability to savor the sensations, as scary and as censored as that may sound. As dancers, we want to learn to trust our own body, the range of its movements, and the places that those movements take us. Because every movement that we do has a chemical effect on us. There's some change in the physiology as various movements stir up various actions in the body. It's almost like the movements have their own flavors. And I would like to invite you, as primarily women watching this video, but it must be true for men to some degree at least, to savor your sensations, savor these flavors, and allow yourself to really participate fully in the changes that these movements bring in consciousness. Because if we can act fully, consciously, in our bodies, in other words, embodied movement, this could bring our experience to a whole new level of life, a whole new level of interaction with our environment. You know, it's been said that there's a ritual component to this form, and that most likely this dance was done in ancient times as a kind of prayer. I was told by Muhammad Khalil in his research with the dances of ancient Egypt that there are several dances. There's a court dance, there's a dance done ritually, and then there was a dance, a solo dance that was performed, but really it was a dance, a prayer that a woman made to the god Bes. If she wanted to conceive, she would move in all the typical ways that women move, circles and undulations and figure eights and so forth, and say, this is the body. Is it not good enough to nourish and bring forth new life? So the point of that little story is that if we can be present in the moment with each movement, then each dance is like a little prayer. And maybe we don't need to pray every day, but I find a very profound experience often when I am centered in the movement and really attentive to the changes that each movement brings. So I invite you to savor those sensations and to embrace and embody the changes that take place in you as a dancer and as a performer and as a woman.